In the cluttered common room of her foster home, the echoes of laughter surrounded Clara like a distant melody, sweet yet unreachable. Children played tag, their shrieks of delight bouncing off the faded wallpaper as they darted through the narrow aisles, their joyous energy a stark contrast to the heavy fog of isolation that enveloped Clara. She sat alone in her corner, a small figure dwarfed by the oversized chair that had become her sanctuary, but even here she was but an unnoticed shadow. Her heart ached with an emptiness that had become familiar, the kind of ache that settled in the bones and whispered of abandonment and longing. Clara's gaze drifted to a weathered box perched high atop a dusty shelf, its surface scuffed and stained, cradling fragments of a past she could only imagine. She yearned to reach for it, to untangle the stories buried within, yet the box remained unreachable, as if it were a metaphor for the connection she could never grasp, with the mother she never knew. The home around her buzzed with fleeting moments of warmth, but to Clara, they felt like echoes that faded before they reached her heart. She often wondered if she would ever truly belong anywhere, if someone would see her for who she was, rather than just another child in the system. Among the chaos, her soul felt invisible, wrapped in layers of neglect that strained against the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Today felt different, as something hung in the air like the charged silence before a storm. Just then, the front door swung open, sending a cold draft through the room and stirring Clara from her thoughts. It was the mailman, his arms laden with envelopes, vivid against the dull hues of the room. Among the ordinary letters and promotional flyers, one stood out, almost glowing with a sense of purpose. Clara's heart raced as she watched an adult retrieve the envelope, its crisp edges promising news that could tip her world off its axis. When the letter was finally handed over, its weight felt immense in her small hands. The return address was unfamiliar, yet the elegant script called to something deep within her. With hesitant fingers she tore it open, a rush of air filling her lungs as the contents spilled forth. The revelation was startling. A lawyer's letter explaining that she had inherited a dilapidated castle from her mother, the very woman whose existence had been a fleeting shadow in her memories. Her pulse quickened, confusion and excitement flooding her senses as she tried to process what the words meant. A castle? What kind of life had her mother led? The idea sent tremors through her, conjuring images of grand halls, dusty portraits and stories waiting to be uncovered. It was as though a door had been cracked open, revealing glimpses of a reality she had never known. Questions cascaded through her mind like leaves in the wind, trailing the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Clara felt her breath catch, the room around her fading as a single thought took root. Perhaps this castle held the keys to understanding a part of herself that had been lost, a path toward the connection she so deeply craved. In that moment, hope flickered and ignited a spark in her heart, pushing back against the pervasive shadow of loneliness. If you also feel this ache in your chest, consider liking and subscribing. Someone else might need to hear this story today. Clara could almost hear the whispers of those walls, calling her forth into a mystery that promised to reshape her understanding of love, family, and the depth of her own resilient spirit. The air felt thicker as Clara sat in her corner, grappling with the revelation of her inheritance. It was a castle, a tangible piece of her mother's past that now hovered in her future, like a wish waiting to be fulfilled. Yet her excitement was laced with a familiar tension, for how could she simply step into this new world when all her life had been spent navigating the shadows of abandonment and uncertainty? She settled back into the oversized chair, and her mind drifted away, igniting memories that, while painful, were woven into the very fabric of her existence. Clara's past unfolded like an old fading film reel, full of clips that played in stark black and white. She remembered her first foster home, where the smell of mildew mingled with the aroma of unwashed dishes. The chill of the empty nights lingered in her bones, echoing the silence that filled the corners of her small, lonely room. She could still hear the creaking floorboards, the soft whispers of laughter from other children outside her door, laughter she felt utterly disconnected from. Each meal was served on chipped plates, the food often cold and uninviting. It had been there, in that stark kitchen filled with the ghosts of forgotten promises, that Clara learned the bitterness of not being seen, not being cherished. Flashbacks of other foster homes flickered through her thoughts, each one more hurtful than the last. She could almost feel the sharp edges of the memories pressing against her heart. A cold winter night, huddled beneath tattered blankets, where she fractured stories of families that had sought to adopt her but eventually moved on, leaving her behind like an unwelcome reminder of what could have been. There was one family in particular that had piqued her hope. They had looked at her with a glimmer of warmth, only to change their minds as easily as flipping a page. The conditional affection she had received felt like a cruel game, one where she was never given a chance to win. Clara's mother was an enigma, a figure constructed from memories that were tantalizing yet out of reach. She had been told her mother vanished when Clara was a baby, swept away by circumstances that had made her presence a distant wound. No one spoke of her, as if the mere mention of her name could fracture the fragile peace that existed within the walls of the foster system. Clara would often find herself staring at the stars late at night, crafting fantasies about her mother, imagining she would one day come for her, that the love she felt was something that crossed all distances. But as the years rolled on, Clara learned that the stars were just remnants of a universe that didn't include her, a universe where she remained unseen. As she sat there, entrenched in thoughts of her past, a profound sense of loneliness washed over her. It was a gnawing ache, one that reminded her how frequently she had felt invisible. Yet today, the prospect of the castle ignited a flicker of something else: curiosity. Maybe it was a gateway to understanding who her mother had been and, in turn, who Clara could become. With the letter still clutched tightly in her hands, she mustered a wave of determination within her, enough to push back against the sadness that had shrouded her life. In that spirit of curiosity, Clara began to envision the journey awaiting her, the dusty halls of the castle beckoning her closer, each stone a whisper of a dream unfulfilled. She felt a magnetic pull, an urge to uncover the secrets that lay in the shadows of that forgotten place. What stories did the castle hold? What artifacts had been left behind that might paint a picture of the mother she had yearned to know? Setting her heart on the adventure, Clara decided she would leave her mark on that castle, not just as a child abandoned, but as someone claiming her rightful place in a narrative that had been waiting for her. As days passed, Clara found solace in the fantasy that began to unfurl in her mind. Her imagination thrived, replaying images of grand staircases illuminated by sunlight pouring through stained glass windows, of rooms filled with fading photographs of a family she could not recall but longed to touch. She envisioned herself walking through those halls, her fingers trailing along the ancient walls that bore witness to her mother's dreams and heartbreaks. Clara could see herself standing in front of a large mirror, the reflection showing not just a girl who had been overlooked, but a young woman ready to reclaim her story. She felt empowered, determined to gather every piece of her mother's life, and in turn to discover her own self-worth that had been lost amongst the neglect of the past. Clara breathed deeply, envisioning her future self roaming those vast corridors, a sense of belonging and connection thriving where once there had only been emptiness. Each day she grew more restless to leave her old life behind, to step into her inheritance, and to unearth the memories the castle housed. She could hardly wait for the moment she would stand before those weathered doors, her heart racing with a mix of hope and trepidation, ready to embrace the uncertainty that awaited her. Deep down, Clara understood that the castle was not just a place, it was a symbol of potential, the embodiment of all her unvoiced dreams. There was a burgeoning belief within her, a quiet yet undeniable resolve that whispered of transformation. Clara was no longer merely a forgotten child. She was a seeker, a young girl on the cusp of discovering not just her mother, but herself. With the letter as a guidepost, she would venture into her past, forging the connections she had yearned for, ready to create a future colored by love and understanding. The day had finally come. Clara stood before the castle, her heart pounding as she faced the weathered structure that held her mother's history. The rough stones, entwined with vines, cast long shadows under the afternoon sun. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs as she stepped inside. The ancient wooden door creaking open like a whispered invitation into the unknown. The air felt cool and damp as she entered, and the familiar scent of musty stone enveloped her, tinged with the feeling of lives lived long before hers. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like faint spirits in the history of this place. Every step Clara took echoed in the vastness of the foyer, a reminder of the silence that filled the space, as if it too were waiting for her to reclaim it. Her exploration began intrepidly. The parlor welcomed her with white sheets draped over furniture, a hushed testament to the passage of time. Clara glanced around, each piece of furniture seeming to whisper stories of laughter and love that once filled this room. As her fingers brushed over the sheet, she felt an unexpected connection to the space, as if it were calling out to her, urging her to uncover its secrets. Suddenly, her gaze caught a painting hanging on the wall, a portrait of a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, radiating warmth that penetrated Clara's heart. It was her mother, a haunting resemblance sparking a flurry of emotions. Beneath it lay an overwhelming sense of loss, mixed with the fervent yearning to know the woman behind the painted smile. Clara moved closer, feeling the complexity of emotions untangled deep within her. Motivated by a mix of curiosity and determination, Clara continued her search, finding a narrow door leading to a small room lined with shelves filled with dust-laden boxes. She hesitated for just a moment, anticipation simmering in her veins, before lifting the lid of the nearest box. Inside was a treasure of forgotten keepsakes, a testament to her mother's life, its layers rich with history. Clara unearthed an old locket, a collection of postcards adorned with vibrant scenes from places her mother once envisioned visiting, and buried beneath it all was a weathered journal. With trembling hands, she opened the journal, revealing a world of her mother's innermost thoughts, penned in graceful script. Each page pulsated with life, chronicling the struggles of a woman caught between dreams and reality. Clara felt each entry resonate, detailing her mother's hopes of building a future filled with love and adventure, contrasted against the desperation that had led to choices ultimately driving them apart. As Clara read on, emotions surged within her, understanding mingling with heartbreak. She learned of her mother's sacrifices and regrets, the fierce love that had never wavered, yet which had been overshadowed by circumstance. Clara's heart ached for the woman whose life had been intertwined with the threads of loss and hardship. The words painted a clearer picture of the woman who had vanished from her life, yet they also illuminated the connection they shared. Hours slipped away unnoticed as she continued reading. In that small room filled with dust, Clara felt a sense of belonging crystallizing within her. Each piece she uncovered became a thread, binding her to her mother. She recognized her own resilience, blossoming from the roots of her mother's experiences. The castle, once a solitary tomb of memories, transformed into a vibrant tapestry of their intertwined lives. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues over the ancient stones, Clara felt a resolve solidify within her. She would honor her mother's legacy through her own life, embracing the love that had been there all along, waiting for her to recognize it. With a heart full of newfound strength, Clara realized this journey was just the beginning. The castle held the potential for reconstructing her identity, for breathing life into forgotten stories, and for forging connections that transcended time. As evening encroached, Clara gently closed the journal, feeling the weight of her discoveries settle within her, a comforting anchor amidst the chaos of her past. The castle was no longer just a relic of her mother's life. It was hers now, a sacred space waiting for rebirth. With every intention to restore love where there had been sorrow, she pledged to breathe life into the halls that had been silenced for too long. Clara didn't just arrive in the castle, she found herself ready to write the next chapter of her own story. Clara lingered in the castle, her heart swelling with purpose and determination after her discoveries. As she wandered through the remnants of her mother's life, she began to forge a connection that transcended time and space. The walls that once felt like tombstones now echoed with potential, whispering encouragement that Clara had long yearned for, but never received. With the early evening sun filtering through the tall windows, casting intricate patterns on the floor, Clara moved gracefully through the halls. Each room revealed new snippets of her mother's life. A forgotten sewing machine covered in dust, an old armchair where countless dreams may have been spun, and shelves lined with books stamped with titles that ignited Clara's imagination. She could almost sense her mother's presence lingering like an unfinished song, each note echoing with emotions that had been buried for far too long. But as she absorbed the essence of the castle, another reality began to settle on her. The shadow of her mother's decisions had cast a long pall over their history. Clara felt a sudden responsibility weighing heavily on her shoulders. With every reviving breath, she understood the complexities of her mother's choices, particularly the painful moment that led to their separation. It was one thing to read the words in the journal, but another entirely to face the truth that those decisions had been born out of love, tinged with desperation. In the stillness of the castle, Clara decided it was time to confront the essence of her mother's past directly. Armed with the journal as her guide, she began to retrace her mother's footsteps, searching for the heart of the decisions made long ago. What had her mother endured to bring her here, to this place of shadows and echoes? Clara realized the answers lay not in the mere physicality of the castle, but also in the emotional landscape it harbored. Wandering into the library, an expansive room with ornate wood paneling and shelves that stretched to the ceiling, Clara was enveloped in the comforting scent of old paper and leather-bound books. A flicker of movement captured her attention, and she turned her gaze to a small door at the far end of the room, one she had yet to explore. With cautious curiosity, she approached and opened it. The door creaked ominously, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. Her heart raced with adrenaline as she contemplated the path before her. She didn't hesitate for long. The promise of discovery drew her down each step. It was dim and cool, the air thick with mystery. Flickering shadows danced against the stone walls as Clara made her way down, her heart drumming with anticipation. Why had her mother hidden this part of the castle? What secrets lay beyond? At the bottom of the staircase, Clara emerged into a cavernous cellar filled with old trunks, crates, and cobwebs that glistened in the faint light, filtering through narrow windows. The space felt intimate yet heavy with unspoken stories. With mounting excitement, she began to rummage through the items, her fingers brushing against forgotten relics of the past. Among the stacks, she unearthed a trunk adorned with intricate carvings of flowers, a motif she'd seen throughout the castle. Clara knelt down and opened it, revealing a delicate lace dress, the fabric worn yet beautiful. Near it lay a bouquet of dried flowers, brittle with age but still holding a faint floral fragrance. Clara's heart raced as she began to piece together fragments of stories, intertwining her own reality with her mother's. Memories flooded her mind, moments she had long thought confirmed her loneliness. The longing for a connection that all this time felt just out of reach. Clara continued her exploration, her resolve growing stronger with each discovery. It was here, amidst the silence of the cellar, that she uncovered an old faded letter tucked into the trunk. Clutching it carefully, she unfolded it, revealing her mother's hurried script, a plea of sorts, woven with longing and love. In that letter, her mother spoke of the heartache of separation, of the struggle to make a choice that both protected and distanced Clara from her. Each stroke of the pen bespoke a profound love that had dictated her every decision. Tears streamed down Clara's face as she read words infused with vulnerability, a quiet testament to the sacrifices made not from indifference, but from an unwavering love buried beneath layers of regret and pain. Clara's heart broke as her mother's voice echoed in her mind, resonating with the weight of sorrow and desire for a better life. There were moments in which she could sense the anguish of choices that had turned into a kaleidoscope of uncertainty. But within that letter, Clara also discovered seeds of hope. Her mother had dreamed of reconciliation, a future where they could find their way back to one another. With all this knowledge crashing into her soul, something profound shifted within Clara. The journey she had begun was not just about uncovering the past, it was about healing it. Emerging from the cellar, Clara felt her heart pulsing with renewed purpose. Armed with the revelations she had collected, she ascended back to the halls bathed in warmth from the golden rays of the setting sun. As she stepped back into the parlor, she felt an undeniable presence beside her, one that was not just the echoes of her mother, but of her own strength and resilience, transforming into the future she wished to create. Clara looked around, recognizing the castle as a living entity, filled with the memories of all those who had come before her. As night fell, she understood that she had the power to reshape not only her mother's legacy, but her own path as well. The castle was no longer merely a remnant of her mother's existence. It was now a sanctuary for her own journey of healing, growth, and love. With newfound determination swirling within her, Clara whispered a promise into the stillness. She would breathe life into every memory, honoring her mother as she sought to free both their spirits from the burden of the past. Through laughter and tears, opening doors left untouched for far too long, she would weave a new narrative of love, one full of redemption and the promise of belonging. Clara stepped further into this journey, joyfully walking toward the horizon of her future. Alongside the spirit of a mother, she was finally beginning to understand. The dawn of a new day broke over the castle, bathing its weathered stones in a gentle golden light that seemed to ignite the very air with possibility. Clara stood at the large arched window of the parlor, gazing out at the sprawling landscape that surrounded her. The soft rustle of leaves danced through the open window, merging with the sound of distant birds singing their morning melodies. Today, Clara embraced a profound commitment to herself and to her mother's memory. Today would be the day of reconciliation, where she would breathe life back into the castle, its heart beating anew. Clara gathered the treasures she had uncovered, carefully placing them in a basket. The journal, her mother's letter, the delicate lace dress, each represented a thread in the tapestry of a life once lived and a narrative waiting to be rewritten. As she organized these precious items, Clara felt a sense of urgency. She needed to honor her mother's dreams, transforming this space into one bursting with love and warmth. It was time to make the castle a home, to fill it with the joys and laughter that had been absent for so long. With determination in her stride, Clara embarked on a mission to restore the castle room by room, pouring her heart into each space. She started with the parlor, removing the dust-covered sheets from the furniture, revealing familiar shapes that had existed only in her imagination. As she cleaned, Clara allowed herself to dream. What would it look like filled with life, with family gatherings and heartfelt conversations? More than just cleaning, Clara began to decorate. With each trinket she found, each flower she could gather from the wildflowers blooming outside, she envisioned a world where her mother's love would intertwine with her own. She arranged photographs of people she had once considered strangers, creating a family collage that honored the past while celebrating her present. With care, she set up the old sewing machine in the corner, crafting a small sewing nook where she could feel closer to her mother through the art of creation. As the sun rose higher, Clara worked tirelessly, feeling the pulse of the castle steadying beneath her fingertips. She painted old walls, repaired faded corners, and filled the spaces with laughter, conversations, and echoes of dreams long kept at bay. With every new layer, the castle transformed from a shadow of her mother's life into a vibrant space of memory and love, one that would welcome her freely and provide her strength. After several days of labor, the parlor emerged transformed, colorful and alive. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating arrangements of wildflowers, casting around the room a rainbow of colors. Clara planted small tokens of her mother's past, pieces of lace draped over the back of the armchair, a fabric swatch she had found tucked away, each touch connecting her deeper to the woman she sought to honor. It was a space that felt whole, where the spirit of her mother mingled seamlessly with Clara's own. Next, Clara made her way to the kitchen, determined to do something her mother had always dreamed of, cooking and sharing meals together in a joyful atmosphere. Clara recalled the flavors and scents her mother had mentioned in her journal, reminiscing about family meals filled with laughter. Invigorated by the memories, Clara set to work organizing the kitchen. She filled cabinets with dishes she had uncovered, a simple yet beautiful collection, perfectly imperfect. Clara sourced fresh herbs and vegetables from a small garden she started outside, hoping to cultivate life in the space where her mother once dreamed of nurturing family. Each time she harvested a vegetable, she imagined how each meal could be an expression of love, a tradition crafted from lessons passed down. Clara painted the kitchen window frames bright and cheery, creating an inviting atmosphere that sparked comfort and joy. As these spaces took form, Clara realized that she was not alone in her endeavor. The castle, with its grounds and gardens, was alive, welcoming her into its embrace while holding fragments of her mother's essence. Clara could almost hear echoes of her mother's laughter mingling with the wind, guiding her through each step. She began inviting friends from the nearby town, those who had once been mere acquaintances and now felt like pieces of a puzzle she longed to complete. With each gathering, laughter filled the halls, and the castle resonated with the warmth of connection. Clara embraced the community, sharing meals, memories, and stories. The gatherings became regular, transforming the once silent castle into a sanctuary of love and belonging. It held the echoes of her mother's spirit, where every flower arrangement, every shared story played witness to a life reclaimed. As the seasons turned, Clara found joy in regular visits to the castle, where she continued to redefine its purpose and her own identity. She began to connect the histories of others, weaving her path into the lives surrounding her, fostering a close-knit family forged from trust and understanding. The castle grew more than just walls and windows. It became a beacon of hope for others who had felt lost. One chilly autumn afternoon, as amber leaves drifted from trees and danced through the air, Clara stood at the parlor window staring out at the horizon, reflecting on the journey she had taken. In her hands, she held the journal and her mother's letter, binding them with a piece of string, honoring the hope and reconciliation they represented. With a heart full of gratitude and love, she decided it was time to visit her mother's resting place. Clara walked through the grounds, recalling the fragrance of the flowers she could now nurture. When she reached the grave, Clara knelt down, allowing the memories to wash over her. She spoke softly, her voice steady and clear, offering her words to the wind as if she were sharing them with her mother. Clara told her of the castle's transformation, the laughter that now filled rooms, and the sense of belonging she had found in herself and others. With a flower in hand, Clara laid it on her mother's tombstone, feeling a weight lifting, a closure settling around her heart. "Thank you for the love, Mum," she whispered, the sound of her voice blending seamlessly with the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. "Thank you for showing me the way home." As she stood, taking a deep breath of cool, fresh air, Clara realized she had come full circle. The castle, once a vessel of loss, had become a cradle of love and renewed identity. It was a legacy of healing and growth. Clara emerged transformed, embracing not only her mother's memory, but also the woman she had become. She understood that the stories behind every wall, every door, and every gathering would continue to echo her mother's spirit, her own, and those of new friends weaving through the tapestry of life. With the sun dipping low in the sky, Clara made her way back to the castle, where warmth awaited her. There, in that sacred space, she could finally say she had not just found her mother again, she had discovered herself. "Thank you for staying until the end. Sometimes, all a child needs is to be heard." As sunlight streamed through the castle windows, Clara awoke each day with a renewed sense of purpose. The weeks following her connection to her mother's past had transformed not only the stunning old structure, but also the warmth within her heart. Embracing her mother's dreams, she had opened the castle doors wide to children seeking solace, laughter, and companionship. What had once been a hollow echo of loss now rang with the vibrant energy of joy and connection. Emma hesitated, her gaze flickering between the colorful materials strewn across the table and Clara's reassuring smile. It took only a moment before she stepped forward, grateful for the invitation. Clara's heart swelled as Emma began to craft her bracelet. This connection was not just meaningful for Emma, it sparked memories of the warmth she had craved, the friendships that often felt so out of reach. In the following weeks, Clara not only nurtured Emma's growing confidence, but also fostered a sense of community among the children. Outdoor gardening workshops, storytelling afternoons, and shared picnics became a regular occurrence. Each gathering filled the castle's halls with gleeful laughter and heartfelt conversations, coaxing the shadows of isolation into the light of companionship. Clara took joy in witnessing the children's blossoming friendships, knowing they mirror her own journey from solitude to belonging. One warm evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden rays across the garden, Clara gathered the children around a bonfire. The flames flickered brightly, and as she shared tales of her mother's life, she painted a picture of the love and resilience that can flourish amid adversity. The children's eyes shimmered with interest. They were captivated not only by the stories, but also by the spirit of the castle that held them safe. "Tonight, we're going to make wishes and toss them into the fire," Clara announced at the end of her tales, excitement bubbling in her voice. "As the embers rise, they will carry our dreams into the universe." The children, brimming with anticipation, joined in the fun, crafting wishes with their leaves and scraps of paper. Clara gazed into the flames, her heart simultaneously light and heavy. It was more than wishes being cast. There was a thread of hope binding them together, woven through shared dreams and aspirations. Yet as the weeks turned to months, Clara's thoughts turned inward as she contemplated her wishes. While she cherished the time spent nurturing the children, she felt a growing yearning within herself, an urge to uncover deeper stories within the castle's walls. Underneath the cheerful exterior, she sensed history deeply embedded in the foundations, waiting to be revived. On a cool autumn evening, she decided to explore the attic, which had long remained untouched. Dust swirled in the dim light as Clara climbed the creaky staircase. Surrounded by dusty boxes filled with artifacts of forgotten lives, Clara felt a surge of curiosity. Among stacks of old letters and photographs, one letter caught her eye. Beautifully penned and addressed to my one true love, it spoke of devotion and heartache across time, stirring something in Clara's heart. Motivated by her discovery, Clara spent days exploring the attic for more forgotten treasures. She uncovered stories of love, loss, and dreams intertwined with her own journey. Each letter and photograph unearthed revealed tales of the lives that had flourished in this castle. Clara understood that these narratives deserved to be heard, connecting everyone who had shared the castle's spirit throughout the years. Determined to honor these stories, Clara decided to organize a storytelling festival that would rekindle the bonds of a community that had once embraced her. Invitations were sent out, and anticipation buzzed through the village as the festival day approached. On the day of the festival, Clara decorated the courtyard with colorful mats and flowers, setting the scene for an unforgettable gathering. The moment the village began to fill the space, Clara's excitement peaked. The courtyard erupted with laughter and chatter, merging diverse voices into a beautiful symphony. With her heart racing, Clara took center stage. With a smile, she shared the heartwarming and often heartbreaking stories she had uncovered. She unveiled the tales of lovers who had once roamed these halls and friends who had weathered life's storms together. Within moments of Clara's voice filling the air, the crowd sat spellbound. The children were enraptured by these narratives. The adults wore expressions of nostalgia, as they felt the pulse of their own memories awaken. The festival became a sacred space where fragments of the past intersected with current lives, sparking the importance of connection and healing. As Clara invited others to share their experiences, the stories flowed like a river of shared experiences, each voice adding to the collective understanding that bound them all together. Emma timidly raised her hand, her voice slightly trembling. "Can I share too?" she asked, her heart filled with warmth. "Of course," Clara encouraged, her smile more radiant than ever. Emma stepped forward, recounting her story of how she had once felt lonely and scared, until Clara had welcomed her with open arms. "This castle has become my home," she said, her eyes glistening. Clara watched, her heart swelling with joy, as the castle continued to embrace every soul that stepped through the door, healing wounds and offering love that might otherwise be overlooked. As the festival drew to a close, Clara asked everyone to make one final wish. The group gathered around the flickering flames, each child holding tight to their dreams. One by one, they placed their wishes into the fire, watching them ascend toward the night sky like little stars. Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude for the community they had nurtured together. As she stood beneath the stars, surrounded by laughter and warmth, Clara understood that she had built a family forged from shared stories and dreams, each child a reminder of her journey back to herself. Within the castle's embrace, she had found her purpose, not just in maintaining the legacy of her mother, but in crafting a new narrative interwoven with love and resilience. In that moment, Clara whispered a silent promise to her mother and to herself. She would continue to foster this circle of storytelling that brought hope, laughter, and joy. As they parted ways that evening, Clara felt content knowing the castle would continue to be a beacon of connection. Under its watchful gaze, new stories would emerge, hearts would mend, and dreams would take flight. As the first light of dawn filled the castle with a gentle glow, Clara awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. The storytelling festival was still fresh in her mind, a sweet reminder of the connections she was forging within the community. Looking out at the quiet courtyard, she envisioned the laughter of children echoing through the air. Each child she welcomed into the castle brought unique stories and dreams, creating a vibrant tapestry of life. With the idea of a regular storytelling gathering blossoming in her thoughts, Clara set to work, preparing for a new weekly event she named Story Saturday. She envisioned a space where everyone, children, teens, and adults, could share their experiences, unleash their creativity, and connect on a deeper level. She wanted it to be more than just a storytelling session. It was a chance to weave a strong community fabric made from shared stories and mutual understanding. After carefully crafting an announcement for the village square, Clara felt a surge of excitement. As she painted the colorful letters, she feared, what if no one came? But she pushed the doubt away, focusing instead on the potential joy these gatherings could create. "Join us for Story Saturday, where every voice matters," she declared as she hung the notice. The day of the inaugural Story Saturday dawned, and Clara prepared the courtyard with cushions and colorful fabrics, creating a welcoming space. As she waited, anticipation mixed with nervousness bubbled within her. Then she heard footsteps approaching, and her heart lifted as children and villagers began to arrive. Emma was among the first, her excitement contagious. "Can we start, Clara?" Emma asked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Yes, let's begin," Clara replied, her voice filled with warmth. As Clara welcomed everyone, she could sense their eagerness. She encouraged them to share whatever story or experience they wished. One by one they opened up. Noah spoke of adventures building forts, while Sophia described her dreams of visiting far-off places. Clara's heart swelled with every tale. Each story drew them closer together, transforming the courtyard into a safe, shared haven. Then, Clara introduced an interactive element by suggesting they create a collective mural representing their stories. She ushered the children to a large canvas under the ancient oak tree, encouraging them to express their creativity. The air filled with energy as they painted, magically transforming their thoughts into colors and shapes. Watching them create, Clara felt pride and joy filling her heart. Every child poured their essence into the mural, capturing fragments of their dreams and experiences. Emma painted a bright sun, while Noah depicted a fantastical castle, each brushstroke adding to the excitement and connection among them all. After the painting session, Clara gathered everyone in a closing circle around the mural. "This artwork reflects our voices and our dreams," she said, her words resonating among them. "It symbolizes the bonds we're creating together." As they admired their collective work, Clara saw the light of belonging in the children's eyes. They were no longer just individual stories, but intertwined lives, each contributing to this beautiful community tapestry. With the sun setting and golden light bathed warmly over them, Clara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had not only created an event for storytelling, but ignited a spark of camaraderie within the village. As participants lingered longer, the warmth of friendship settled like a blanket over them, knitting their hearts together. Approaching Emma, Clara asked, "How did you enjoy today?" Emma replied with a glowing smile. "It was amazing. Everyone's stories feel like they're part of one big adventure." Clara nodded, embracing the warmth of the moment. She had not only created a safe space, but was nurturing her own heart and purpose through these gatherings. She felt connected to the legacy of her mother, learning that every story shared was a step closer to healing and understanding. As the last of the light faded and stars began to twinkle in the evening sky, Clara whispered a promise to herself and her mother. She vowed to continue this journey of storytelling, fostering an environment where every heart is valued and every voice can be heard. With each Story Saturday, she knew they would not only share tales but also create lasting bonds, filling the castle and the community with hope, laughter, and unbreakable connections.